Hello, my name is Alicia, and welcome to my Unnoticed Evil channel, where I talk about the hidden evils in culture. And today I'm going to be talking about self-righteousness, and how it can actually be worse than just being bad. Now, self-righteous and unrighteous people are both bad people. The difference is that your classic bad people know that they are bad, while the self-righteous people do not know that they're bad. Now, previously I discussed the evildoer's self-delusion bubble, which is a bubble of delusion that evildoers create for themselves that tells them that they are good people when they are bad people. Self-righteousness, however, takes things a step further, where one's pride is wrapped up in one's false sense of righteousness. It involves a holier-than-thou, sanctimonious mindset. Now, self-righteous people, they like to wear the "I'm a better person than you" feather in their cap, but without going through the work and the sacrifice of actually being the better person. They will tend to create their own moral hierarchy. Whatever this moral hierarchy is, they are at the top, while the people they don't like are probably at the bottom. As much as self-righteous people believe that they are good, they may be in a worse state than the people who are just bad. Now, C.S. Lewis had a famous quote that compares robber barons to moral busybodies. Now, robber barons are just wealthy, powerful businessmen. They represent your classic bad guys. They're very powerful, wealthy, they like to oppress the poor. Whereas moral busybodies are your self-righteous people. They believe they're morally superior and have some kind of right to intervene in other matters that don't concern them. And so the quote goes, "Of all the tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep, his cupidity may at some point be satiated, but those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience." And so we can see here that, in a way, when self-righteous people do evil, which they do evil just like the classic bad people do, their evil sometimes just doesn't sleep, because they really think they're doing good in their own delusion, and it causes them to keep doing it without stopping. Now, bad people, your classic bad people, they can actually turn good. And they often turn good when they've hit rock bottom and are in prison, for example, for committing heinous crimes. Examples include David Berkowitz, who killed 6 people and wounded 7 others while randomly shooting at people in New York City. Jeffrey Dahmer had killed 17 young men. He did so by luring them into his apartment under false premises. Other crimes Jeffrey Dahmer committed were rape, dismemberment, cannibalism, and necrophilia. Carla Faye Tucker broke into her friend's apartment to rob him. She killed him and his girlfriend with an axe. Ted Bundy was guilty of rape, strangling, and necrophilia, and he killed 36 women. Susan Atkins participated in 7 murders, including the murder of a woman in late stages of pregnancy. And Charles Watson was a member of the Charles Manson family and participated in the same murders as Susan Atkins. All these people, as bad as they are, actually turned good. They were sentenced to prison, and so they were already receiving a lot of negative feedback from the world around them, telling them their behavior was terrible. Self-righteous people, however, don't receive that same feedback. Now, for self-righteous people to turn good, the process is more complicated and less likely to happen. In my opinion, you cannot turn good if you do not even know that you are a bad person. And also, for self-righteous people to have any hope of turning good, they need to swallow their pride. And that's difficult because their pride is wrapped up in their false sense of being good. So they have more barriers to overcome to turn good than your classic bad people. Now, unlike the evil that classic bad people do, self-righteous people are more likely to do evil that is rather subtle. They will see fault in others that is not there. They will impose unnecessary and perhaps inappropriate behavioral standards onto others. They will be guilty of hypocrisy, and they may even have a false sense that others are indebted to them. Now, self-righteous people can be so preoccupied with being the better person that they fail to even just care about other people. It is ironic, because the point of being righteous is to make the world the best place for everybody. Some self-righteous people may be legalistic and impose certain rules of behavior onto others. These rules, if followed, may not benefit anybody. The reason these rules don't benefit anybody is they're not really meant to help anybody. The real motive behind these rules is the moral hierarchy. Regardless of whether you believe in God, You can see perfect examples of self-righteousness in the Bible in regards to the Pharisees. Now, the Pharisees were religious leaders who wore long robes and were highly respected by the people. Jesus rebuked the Pharisees more than he did anybody else because they cared more about following rules and traditions than they did about their fellow human beings. The Pharisees were contrasted with the prostitutes and tax collectors, who were known for being sinners. Now, tax collectors were particularly known for being sinners because they collected money from their own people for the Roman government, and anything that was not owed to the Roman government they could keep for themselves. And so they often taxed people more than they needed to so they could keep the rest, which is why they were thought of as being the bad guys in their communities. So one of the verses that describes the Pharisees is Gospel of Matthew, chapter 12, starting in verse 9. It says, "He went on from there and entered the synagogue, and a man was there with a withered hand. And they asked him, 'Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath?' So that they might accuse him, of course, of breaking the Sabbath. He said to them, 'Which one of you who has a sheep, if it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will not take hold of it and lift it out? Of how much more value is a man than a sheep? So it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath.' Then he said to the man, 'Stretch out your hand.' And the man stretched it out, and it was restored, healthy like the other." So for those who don't know, the Sabbath was a special day of the week that the Jews were supposed to not do any work and devote to God. But the Pharisees sometimes took this rule too far and forbid people from doing a lot of different things. For example, if somebody needs help, well, you're not supposed to help them because you're not supposed to do any work on the Sabbath. And so you can imagine how bad this could be. For example, let's say you're trapped inside of a pit and somebody could help you out, but they say, "Nope, you have to wait until the next day. It's the Sabbath. We're not supposed to do any work today." And so you can see where the Pharisees can actually do harm if they take these rules too far. Now, another example of what the Pharisees were like is found in Gospel of Luke, chapter 18, starting in verse 9. It said, "He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and treated others with contempt. He said, 2 men went up into the temple to pray. One, a Pharisee, standing by himself, prayed thus, 'God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all I get.' But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even lift up his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, 'God, be merciful to me, a sinner.' I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other." So what Jesus is saying here is that it was a tax collector who was justified because he truly recognized how heinous his actions were, whereas a Pharisee just could not find fault in himself, even though he, like everybody else, had done things that were wrong in his life. Now, Gospel of Matthew, chapter 23, verses 1 through 36, describes Pharisees in some really interesting imagery. For example, it says, "For they preach, but do not practice. They tie up heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on people's shoulders. But they themselves are not willing to move them with their finger. They do all their deeds to be seen by others." So this quote shows everything is about appearances, but they don't really care about people. And they place burdensome behavioral standards onto other people, and which, of course, are burdensome and cause people distress, but then they don't want to do anything themselves. Another example, they love the place of honor at feasts, and the best seats in the synagogues, and greetings in marketplaces, and being called rabbi by others. So you see here they like the recognition, but that doesn't mean they necessarily care about fellow human beings. Next, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you tithe mint and dill and cumin, and have neglected weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness. So this quote shows that they tithe, right? They donate certain things to God and to the church, but they don't care about the very basics, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. And finally, for you are whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanness. So you also outwardly appear righteous to others, but within you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. So this is imagery that shows a tomb that is very beautiful on the outside, but on the inside has rotting, decaying bodies. And this is an imagery that describes a self-righteous person who likes to look all polished on the outside, but on the inside is full of evil. Now, of course, we can see plenty of examples of self-righteous people today, including in films. One example is a Dolores Umbridge character from the Harry Potter film series. So this is kind of an example of what she's like here.
And how lovely to see all your bright, happy faces smiling up at me. I'm sure we're all going to be very good friends.
That's likely.
The Ministry of Magic has always considered the education of young witches and wizards to be of vital importance. Although each headmaster has brought something new to this historic school, yes, for the sake of progress, must be discouraged.
So Dolores Umbridge cares more about appearing perfect and doing everything according to the book than she cares about people. And so when she had screened the divination instructor, and the divination instructor had failed to predict the future like she was supposed to, Dolores Umbridge was ready to kick her out of the castle and throw her onto the street, as you can see in this video here.
16 years I've lived and taught here. Hogwarts is my home. You can't do this. Actually, I can. Something you'd like to say, dear?
Oh, there are several things I would like to say.
Professor McGonagall, might I ask you to escort Sybil back inside?
Sybil, dear.
Oh,
Sweetie.
thank you. Dumbledore, may I remind you that under the terms of Educational Decree number 23, as enacted by the Minister...
You have the right to dismiss my teachers. You do not, however, have the authority to banish them from the grounds. That power remains with the headmaster.
For now.
So the video shows Dolores' complete absence of compassion for fellow human beings. Now, we tend to think of Lord Voldemort as a villain, or maybe Bellatrix Lestrange, but Dolores Umbridge is a villain in her own way. Now, because self-righteous people often do not care about others, they will do what appears to be a good deed to others, even if it not only fails to benefit anybody, but causes harm. Now, the pro-life movement, for example, is good in principle and can save many lives. But some people in the pro-life movement are self-righteous, and they take the pro-life concept too far. They say abortion is murder, these women are baby killers. But they do not take into account the complex variety of contexts that lead to women seeking abortions, such as medical necessity or child sexual abuse. Underneath the mask of these superheroes, standing up for the unborn babies are people with a moral superiority complex who lack empathy and who, at the end, don't actually care about the unborn. They don't see the scared teenage girls. They don't see the women who are bleeding to death and need medical attention. And so therefore, in this case, the unborn become a vessel through which moral superiority is established over others. So to summarize, self-righteousness is farther removed from being good than just being bad. One cannot turn good if one does not know that one is bad, and is especially difficult if one's sense of pride is wrapped up in one's false sense of goodness. Self-righteous people have a way of adhering to strict behavioral rules that are more focused on promoting a moral hierarchy than they are focused on actually benefiting anybody. And so therefore self-righteousness is a very bad state to be in.